Hello everyone, I'm Christine from Auckland Saddle Fit. I hope you're all finding a good way to fill in our extra week of quarantine. I'm just going to update you with part 3 of our series, How to Fit the Rider to the Saddle. So with this final session, we're going to discuss the saddle flaps, so the width and the length and what that means for the rider, discuss blocks, how they work, and a little bit about the girthing with a summary again on pads and how they influence the fit for the rider. So once again, just to reiterate, what I'm going to go over today discusses the fit of the rider into the saddle on the horse when the horse is in motion. So some of these things are going to change a little bit when you're actually riding, and as good as Trusty Silver is, it doesn't make up for the fact that we do see a couple of differences when you're riding as opposed to being still. And the other thing to remember is that none of this applies if your saddle is an imbalance. If your saddle is tipping you forward or it's dropping you back, the way that you fit into the saddle is going to be adjusted by that. So back in part 1, we had discussed the length of your leg and how to use this length in inches as a starting point to fit you into the saddle. So how does that reflect on the flap? So when we're talking about our saddle flap, again, we have got the length of the flap versus the width of the flap and how that fits your shape. Now, in the disciplines between the GP saddles, jump saddles and dressage saddles are all catered to fit the body in different positions depending on whether we're going to have a nice long shoulder hip heel line for our dressage position, or if we're going to be in more of our 2 points, so we've got our shoulder, knee, toe position. And as we talked about in the last part 2, stirrup bars play a factor in that. But also the shape of the flap. So in our traditional jump saddle, we tend to find that we've got more of a forward angle coming through in the flap. In more of a Aventa GP style, this does have a bit more of a forward flap, we call it a jump GP, but we have a bit more flap behind the leg. Now, there's a couple of different features, and I'm not good at editing, so I'm just going to run you through how these work and what we're looking for, and then I'll do an ungraceful swap over to dressage saddles for you. So when we're looking at our saddle, with this particular event jump GP style, when we're looking at the length of the flap, and this applies to all saddles, the length is really the easy part. It just depends on a personal preference as to how much leg contact you want to have against your horse. People who do a lot of hunting, poloing with their various saddles, or do a lot of trekking, spend a lot of time in the saddle, often like to have a longer flap purely because they don't like to have their leg up against the sweaty horse the whole time. Whatever your personal preference is for length, it's fine. The one time it's not okay is when your flap is too short. So particularly for short riders, what we're looking for when we're talking about the length being too short is effectively where the bottom of this edge sits in relation to your boots. So if this is really short and you keep catching your boots in it, or if you ride with chaps and it's getting caught, it's too short, you need a longer flap. And it is something you do need to be aware of, because while you can have it made slightly shorter, realistically it's not something you want to play with. The width is a more interesting part, and it does talk a lot about how we fit into the saddle. So there's 2 parts of the flap with the width. One is when we're discussing where the back edge of the flap comes down. Now this is really more for aesthetics. So long as you don't feel that back seam of the flap rubbing on your thighs, then it doesn't have any difference to your position. But what it does do, obviously from an aesthetic view, is if it's quite small, it's going to make you look like you've had too many quarantine pies. When we're talking about the front of our saddle, we can increase with our jump saddles or our GP saddles. A lot of these have got the option to have more of a forward flap. Where you need to have a good saddle fitter advice is as to whether you're trying to increase the amount of flap that you need at the top of your leg if you're going to be riding short, or depending where you are sitting in the saddle, or if you like to ride long, if you need a little bit more of a forward projection down through the bottom. This is something that is dependent on the amount of space that we have, and either you can go up a seat size. Sometimes if you've got a skinny bum, that's not the best option, or if we're trying to fit a taller rider into a shorter horse's back space, we can adjust the flats. Not only can we adjust the flats, but with this particular saddle, and the difference between the two are the blocks. So the way the blocks work are they offer us support, very much like the cantle. The trend for blocks and the shapes that they are have come and gone over the years, and really the person who needs to have the most influence over the blocks are your coaches. If you have coaches, they're the ones who are going to see you ride in and out. They're the ones who are going to dictate where your position needs to be in the saddle. So they are the ones who will give you the best advice, or they're going to make your life the easiest if you're riding in something that they think is helping your position. So with our blocks, we have our knee blocks and we have our thigh blocks, which are a little bit of an odd terminology, because actually where we want our blocks to be sitting for our best position is up above the thigh, so not really a knee block, and down by the calf, so not really a thigh block. This block in the calf block is purely to stop your leg from being able to swing back. Your knee block is designed to offer more support. Now again, it comes down to your coach. There is a lot of a tendency for show jumpers now to be able to find their own position, to have an independent seat, and coaches find that blocks get in the way. So having movable blocks or having no blocks is great. If you're riding Crazy Nelly from in the paddock who hasn't been ridden for 6 months, perhaps having some nice blocks, or if you're hunting up and down the hills of the Eiger, blocks offering support in a stable seat are a good idea. Finally, with this saddle, it has got short girthing points. Now the reason I mention this for rider comfort is it is important that you understand that where the buckles of your girth sit are going to influence the way that your leg sits. If we have got our buckles out of the way, you need never know that they're there. If the girth is too short and it's underneath your leg, it is going to cause a lot of issues. If it's up really high underneath the thigh, particularly for women, it's going to make that twist feel like it is wider. When we look at the same thing in our jump saddle, just to reiterate what I was saying, so in this saddle, because it has slightly more forward projection, I have more room behind my knee. Having a fixed block means that if my coach wanted me to ride a little bit shorter, it could get quite problematic. And if my leg is now going to hit that block, the same thing, my knee is going to get rotated out and I'm going to be open through my pelvis. So we want to make sure that you really understand the purpose of the blocks and how they can help and hinder you. The nice thing about this saddle is it doesn't have any back blocks and nothing to get in my way. And by having long girth points, it means that I'm not going to have any extra bulk underneath my leg. When we are talking about dressage saddles, it is much of the same. Dressage saddles can also have a variety of different features. We have got movable blocks that offer you the same concept of support. And we have got differing types of fixed blocks. So anything with an external block must also fit nicely against that leg. Otherwise, you'll find when you're in the saddle, if the blocks are too wide, as your thigh hits the top, it's no longer going to offer you that nice support to let you rise, but instead it's going to swing your legs back and you're going to lose that nice body strength that you'll be hoping to have. The same concept applies with a fixed block dressage saddle. When we are looking at the way that a fixed block should offer support, you need to make sure that your leg is able to sit down behind that block without your knee getting popped up on the side. Just again to reiterate, nice long flat, this works well for me, but if I was a short rider or a shorter round rider, not only would the knee block be a problem, but if I have to ride with only my ankle on the horse, I lose all that ability to feel them. So while the flaps are nice, the main thing to remember is the edges of them should never impede on your position. Your blocks should never affect your position. And the girthing should never affect your position. It's all very easy and simple, but they really can have an effect on the rider. Finally, just a quick reminder, for a lot of people, the way the saddle is chosen is often for the horse, and the type of panel, so the shape underneath the saddle, is dependent on what your horse needs. People have got different preferences for whether they like a foam or latex filling, whether they like a care filling or ear, and whether they like wool. But the thing to remember with all of it is it really does remember how this fits on your horse, because if you're just choosing a saddle because somebody else is riding it and you're padding up under it, you suddenly lose your ability to have a nice close contact feel. And the more that you put under it, so whether you're having a thick pad or a thin pad, or suddenly you're having a sheepskin pad and a thick pad, this is all going to lift the saddle up and change the close contact that you have against your horse. So overall, you can see from the 3 videos, there are a huge amount of things that are going to affect your horse. You have a very individual body, your horse has a very individual body, and they're going to change the way it feels. As a saddle fitter, we are trained to look at all of these different aspects and how they relate to you, both when you're static, so you're standing with the horse, and when the horse is in motion. And we are trained to ask questions to make sure the saddle fits for you. I hope that helps you all, and stay safe.